The love story of Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman. Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were like a perfect dream couple. Keith was a wild-hearted singer from Australia who loved playing guitar. Nicole was a beautiful movie star who made every film special. Together, they were like music and movies coming together, a perfect match. On red carpets, they held hands and smiled. Their smiles said, "We'll love each other forever." But in Hollywood, forever doesn't always last. Soon, people started whispering rumors, quiet at first, then louder. They talked about a cocaine clause, a contract about money, and staying away from drugs. Keith had fought against addiction and loneliness before. Nicole had helped him through the dark times, like sunshine breaking through fog. For a while, they seemed perfect together, two people who survived the same storm. But then, the world started turning their love into newspaper stories. Now, one big question remained. Was their love real and healing, or did Hollywood quietly break it? Where they came from. Before the fame, there was a boy in Australia and a girl in Sydney. They grew up in very different worlds. Keith was born in New Zealand but grew up in a small town in Australia. His dad sold car parts. His mom worked at a store. Their home was simple, with dust and old radios. But in one corner sat an old guitar. Keith picked it up when he was very young. When he played, the world felt quiet and peaceful. "When you don't have much," he said, "music becomes your best friend." As a teenager, Keith played in small bars. His fingers hurt and his voice shook, but the clapping made him happy. But deep inside, he was a scared boy who worried about disappearing. Nicole was born in Hawaii but raised in Sydney. Her dad was a smart psychologist. Her mom was a nurse who got very sick when Nicole was young. Their home was quiet and serious. Nicole grew up shy and tall, hiding behind her red hair. Acting became her escape. When she acted, she could be anyone and feel free. By age 15, she was already acting professionally. Fame came fast, but she still felt lonely. "I was always searching for a home," she said. "Not a place, but a feeling." Two different worlds. Keith's world was loud and messy, full of music and rebellion. Nicole's world was quiet and controlled, full of books and perfection. Maybe that's why, years later when they met, something inside them recognized each other. Not as strangers, but as two people who had similar childhood hurts. One grew up with fire, the other grew up with ice. Both were looking for a love that didn't hurt. Finding success. Keith played in smoky bars where the air was heavy and sad. Sometimes he slept in his car or on a friend's couch. But every night, he still played his guitar. That's where he healed. When he finally got his big break, it wasn't easy. He had to go to rehab. He had looked at the bottom of bottles and found only emptiness. But somewhere between sadness and hope, he learned that music wasn't just performing, it was telling the truth. Nicole became a huge Hollywood star. Movies like Moulin Rouge made her famous. But when the cameras turned off, she was still that lonely girl searching for home. Her divorce from Tom Cruise left a deep scar. She wanted something real, someone who didn't need her to be perfect. Meeting each other. In 2005, at a charity event in Los Angeles, fate brought them together. Nicole noticed Keith first, a man with messy hair, a leather jacket, and eyes that looked both wild and sad. Keith saw not the star, but the woman, her laugh that broke through the mask, her tiredness that whispered for rest. When they talked, it wasn't loud or fast, just soft and honest, like two survivors recognizing each other's wounds. "She seemed so real," Keith remembered, "and she looked at me like I wasn't broken." In 2006, under the Tennessee sun, they got married. It wasn't a big, loud wedding. It was quiet and intimate, with more tears than camera flashes. Keith wrote her a song. Nicole whispered her vows through a smile that looked like surrender. For a moment, the world stopped watching, and they were just two people in love, fighting the darkness. But love isn't always simple. Just months after the wedding, Keith went to rehab. His demons followed him home. But Nicole didn't leave. She stayed by his side, quietly and fiercely. She drove him to treatment, waited through long nights, and held his hand when he felt shame. Her faith saved him. His honesty made her believe in love again. Together, they built something real and imperfect and beautiful. In 2008, they had their first daughter, Sunday Rose. In 2010, they had Faith Margaret. Their home filled with guitars, bedtime stories, and lullabies. For the first time, both of them had what they'd always wanted: belonging. But the world kept watching. Cameras followed them everywhere. Every smile became evidence of either perfection or pretending. Still, for a while, they didn't care. Their love felt unbreakable. When things got hard, there are moments when glory starts to feel like sadness. For Keith and Nicole, that moment came quietly. Hollywood loved them. On every red carpet, they looked like a dream. Magazines called them the last fairy tale couple. But behind those perfect pictures, something fragile started to break. Keith's career grew bigger. His voice filled stadiums. But every concert took him away from home, from Nicole, from his daughters. He would come home tired, only to find Nicole gone somewhere in Europe or New York, filming another movie. They were together, everywhere except in time. Nicole was also unstoppable. After movies like The Hours and Big Little Lies, she became more than an actress. She was inspiration for millions. But in interviews, her laugh often came half a second too late. Her eyes shimmered with something unsaid. "I'm a deeply romantic person," she said, "but I also know what loneliness feels like even in love." Keith understood that loneliness too. At award shows, they'd stand hand in hand, but their eyes never quite met. She'd squeeze his fingers, a silent reminder to stay strong. He'd smile back, but his eyes drifted far away. It wasn't betrayal. It was distance, the kind no photograph can capture. The rumors begin. The tabloids started circling. Is their marriage in trouble? Keith seen without Nicole. Nicole breaks down on set. Rumors became everything. Truth became optional, and love became public property. Still, they kept going. They celebrated anniversaries, raised their daughters, sang love songs that sounded like apologies. But even as the world admired them, something inside started to bend. Fame offers glory, but takes pieces of your soul. "Music saved me," Keith once said, "but it also took me away from everything I loved." Nicole said nothing. She just smiled, the kind of smile that stops tears from falling. The cocaine clause. It started with a whisper, then became a headline. Keith Urban's cocaine clause to earn him millions after Nicole Kidman divorce. The story spread like wildfire. They called it the cocaine clause, supposedly a line in their marriage contract promising Keith $600,000 for every year he stayed sober. Fans debated, critics talked, late-night hosts laughed. For the first time in years, neither Keith nor Nicole could find the right words. Keith had fought too hard to let his past define him again. The thought that his sobriety, his proudest victory, was being priced and sold as entertainment cut deep. Nicole was painted as cold and calculating, a woman too smart to love without a contract. The irony hurt. She had been the one who waited outside rehab, the one who chose love over reputation, the one who whispered, "I'll stay even if you fall again." But tabloids don't care about quiet promises. They want drama that sparkles. Behind closed doors, silence grew heavy. Trust started to crack, not because they doubted each other, but because they couldn't escape the noise outside. Every word became a headline. Every touch became evidence. Keith tried to joke. If I'd written that prenup, I'd at least have asked for royalties. But the humor felt empty. Nicole retreated inward. Her smile grew sharper, her presence more distant. She threw herself into work, each role another escape, another mask. At home, arguments turned into silences. Silences turned into absences. One night, Keith sat alone in their Nashville kitchen, a glass of water untouched before him. He looked at the gold records on the wall, each one a reminder that the world loved his pain but never truly understood it. He whispered her name once, softly, as if saying it could undo the damage. But she wasn't there. She was in another city, another hotel room, pretending to be someone else for the cameras. Somewhere between the headlines and the heartbreak, something broke. The world believed the rumor more than the love. It didn't matter that there was no cocaine clause. It didn't matter that divorce papers never mentioned one. The damage was done. A myth replaced the truth. And myths, once born, never die. The quiet goodbye. There are truths that never make it into newspapers, truths that live only in quiet spaces between people who once loved each other. For Keith and Nicole, those truths lingered like perfume after someone leaves a room, invisible but undeniable. No one ever heard them fight. There were no public breakdowns, no slammed doors. Instead, their love unraveled quietly, like a thread slowly pulled loose by time. To the world, they were calm and mature. But behind that calmness was exhaustion, two souls too tired to keep defending themselves. Nicole stopped talking about her marriage in interviews. When asked, she would smile politely and say, "Some things belong only to us." Yet that answer told the whole story. Love that had turned into memory, guarded fiercely from the noise. Keith buried himself in work, finishing tour in Nashville as if every note could keep the pain from rising. He sang love songs to thousands, but each lyric carried a ghost. Sometimes in the middle of a song, he'd close his eyes, and for a moment his face would soften, as if seeing her again in the crowd. They say true love doesn't die, it just changes form. Maybe theirs did too. Maybe it stopped being a marriage and became something quieter, a prayer, a memory, a melody only they could still hear. Nicole's career grew after the separation. Critics called her reborn and fearless. But the sharpest observers noticed something else, a sadness woven through her performances, as if she had learned too much about heartbreak to ever forget it. For Keith, the road became both his refuge and his punishment. "The crowd cheers," he said, "but when it fades, the silence feels louder than addiction ever did." He stayed sober, not because of any clause, but because her belief in him had once made him believe in himself. Sometimes, when the night stretched too long, he'd scroll through old photos. Her laughter caught mid-frame, her hand resting on his arm, the look they once shared before every show. But now they were ghosts in each other's stories, not gone, just rewritten. The real truth. In Hollywood, people like to ask, who fell out of love first? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe it's not about who stopped loving, but who stopped believing that love was enough to survive everything else. They both loved deeply, painfully, beautifully. And when it became too heavy to carry, they didn't destroy it. They preserved it quietly by stepping away. The truth is, neither of them ever spoke against the other. Not once. No bitterness, no public blame, only silence. It was as if they made an unspoken promise. We won't let the world have what's left of us. And so, even as they walked separate roads, her through film sets, him through stages, they carried the same invisible thing, a love that had ended but never truly left. Because some bonds don't break, they just stop asking to be seen. The final song. One Nashville autumn night, Keith Urban stands beneath soft gold stage lights, guitar held against his chest like a confession. The crowd is loud, but his heart is quiet. He closes his eyes before the final song, a song no one else knows he wrote for her. Every note trembles with something unsaid. Every word feels like a prayer to what once was. Somewhere far away, in a city soaked in rain and light, Nicole Kidman stands before a camera. She's playing another woman, a woman learning how to say goodbye without breaking. But when the director says, "Action," she doesn't need to act. Her face already knows the lines. They are no longer husband and wife, but something gentler. Echoes of each other's past, still bound by the promise they once made to love, even if it couldn't last. And maybe that's what love truly is. Not possession, not forever, but the courage to let someone become a part of your silence. As the final chord fades into the night, Keith looks up at the stars above the stage. For a moment, he swears he can feel her there in the warmth of the lights, in the quiet between cheers. Because some songs never end. They just fade into softer keys, into quieter rooms, into the hearts of those who still remember.